Trusted equipment, backed by service. Safer patient outcomes begin with the right equipment and the right partner behind it. That's why we created the MVP program, our commitment to being your most valuable partner in every procedure. When you start using IMP patient protective pads or SteriBump, our sterile surgical bump, you unlock more than just great products. You gain discounted repairs to keep costs down, free loaner equipment to keep you up and running, product discounts to maximize your investment, a 1-year new product warranty, and the exceptional service and support you've come to rely on, delivered by a team that's with you every step of the way. It's more than just a service plan. It's our commitment to stand behind you with best-in-class support, because reliable equipment means safer outcomes for your patients. That's the MVP standard. It's service when you need it, support that's seamless, and protection that's built in so you can focus on what matters most, patient safety. Talk to your IMP representative or visit impmedical.com/MVP to become an MVP today. Because when you invest in IMP, we invest in you.
Family, it's 8 o'clock. Y'all know what that means, right? It's time to talk. Welcome, welcome, welcome. First and foremost, definitely want to give a big shout out to IMP. You saw it, the MVP program. Have you reached out to your rep lately? Are you a part of the program? Are you taking advantage of the discounts, the free loaners, the customer service that comes with being a most valuable partner? Are you participating? If not, definitely reach out to them. Go to their website, find your local rep, and get in on the movement today. I want to thank everybody who's here for, again, making this a great season. I see where the CEUs are helping everybody out, and I love the participation. Hey, Carol, as always, how are you? Sharon, MVP, yes, the MVP program, most valuable partner. Make sure you reach out to them. What can I talk about? Of course, it's time to talk. So let's talk about this. I want to dig into the issues that matter most to sterile processing and the healthcare community at large. So tonight, I want to shine a light on something every professional in our profession has experienced, but few are willing to talk about out loud. That gap between what's written on paper and what actually happens in practice. Let me repeat that for you. The gap between what's written on paper and what actually happens in practice. So you've seen it. The title of tonight's show said it all for everybody, right? Policy is not a poster. Policy is not a poster. Too often policies are drafted, they laminated, they pinned to a bulletin board, or they're stuck in a binder. Nowadays, I know every facilities have them in on their shared drives throughout the hospital. And how many of your people know how to get there? How many of them know what the policy says? Very few can actually show you, teach you how to get there, right? But we should know better. A poster can't hold somebody accountable. Just because you hung it in your department doesn't mean that people are going to follow it. When was the last time it was updated? Just because you hung that poster up, yes, you have a policy in the book, but is that what we're doing in our practices? Right? So a poster can't change behaviors. A poster won't keep patients safe. So just because we put that policy up, does that mean that we're doing the right thing still? What truly makes a difference is when policies are lived out. When we write that policy and we're living that policy, that's what makes a difference. When they're written with clarity, supported with training, reinforced by leadership, and carried out by every member of the team. That's when policy becomes more than just the words. It becomes culture. When everybody knows what the policy says and everybody's doing what the policy says over and over and over, that's when we have a culture that we can build on. So tonight, what we want to do, we're going to unpack the hard questions. What does it mean when staff don't even know the policies that govern their work? Why do so many organizations stop at printing rather than practicing? And how can we, as leaders and frontline professionals, bridge the gap between policy on the wall and policy in action? Those are the tough questions that I hope that you'll walk away tonight with an understanding of what that truly means. So when I was looking at this topic and I wanted to talk about it, I felt one of two ways. Who would be the first person or the best person to talk about this? Would it be a frontline person? Would it be management, whether that's a manager, supervisor, director, or would it be an educator? To me, I felt like we should get an educator so that in turn, that's the person who's carrying out the onboarding. That's the person who's showing people where the policies are. That's the person who actually ties the two things together. So what I did was I reached out to a friend of mine and I invited her here so we can try to dive into those tough questions. So family, as we always do, can you welcome Miss Leza Money to the podcast? We should have warm up. Give you a round of applause. They're happy you're here. Welcome, Leza. How are you, ma'am?
I'm good. How are you, Kenneth?
I'm good. I appreciate you for being here. I thank you for being here because I've heard I've had a lot of comments, a lot of text messages about this is a needed conversation. So I'm glad that we can actually get somebody here who can actually talk about it. Crafted Mom, I see you. I didn't want to leave you out. I know I saw you in the comments, and thank you for being here again as well. Leza, for those people who don't know who you are, could you introduce yourself to the family, please?
Sure. So hi, family. My name is Leza Money. Yes, that is my name. I was born with it. And I've been in the industry for over 20 years. I've done everything from traveling technician. I've done education, and I'm currently over a healthcare system as the sterile processing educator.
Now, I do know that you also teach, right?
I do.
What is that?
So I also
do a little bit. You have your own school.
So yes, I do. I have my own program, and I do teach sterile processing to our up and coming new professionals in the industry. I've been doing that for a very long time as well, and I'm passionate about making sure that new folks coming into the industry are well versed on policies, procedures, standards, best practices, all that good stuff. So definitely, I kind of walk in both worlds.
So you said a couple of key things in that statement that I want to touch on. You said you teach, you got practices, policies, procedures, and you want to make sure that they're well versed. So when we talk about policies, that should be what we're doing when it comes to in our professional environment, right? When we write these policies, it should be what's taught, what's shown every day, and everybody should be well versed in what that policy says. Now, as an educator, let me ask you this question. How often do you run into cases where people are just doing because somebody showed them versus knowing what the policy states?
That's every day. And that's everybody. It's the new people, the old people been there for 100 years. Everybody does that for some reason. Yes.
Now, my question about that is, what has caused that to be the standard versus an anomaly? If that, you said, in the words of you, if everybody does it that way and everybody's practicing it that way, how did we get there?
In my opinion, it seems to be a little bit of complacency sometimes in an environment, the culture of the department. This kind of depends on which angle we're speaking of, but it seems to be like, well, this is what I've always done, whether it was the right thing or policy. It's, well, this is what so-and-so told me, so this is what I've done for the last 50 years. No one's going to show me anything and tell me anything different. And people take on those attitudes sometimes. And when you challenge the system and say, well, the policy says something different, so for some reason, people don't want to hear it.
I heard you say it. It's that key phrase that'll kill any department. It's just how we've always done it, right? So
yeah.
in those departments where we see, you know what, I'm gonna be honest, I've never seen the actual policy hanging in a department, but what I've seen is maybe the SOP, things like that. So if people don't even know where the policies are and people don't train to the policy, how do we expect it to get better though?
And that's true too. So the other side of it is there has to be some type of, as the comments say, accountability, even for the leadership side, to make sure that we are not only just on onboarding, showing people here's policies and go find it on your own, but maybe on an ongoing basis, being in touch with them and saying, hey, let's go over some of our key policies to make sure that our staff is actually going to follow them and not just go with the status quo of what we've always done. But that does rest on leadership and educators' shoulders.
I say what Carol said, same thing, tribal knowledge and lack of accountability to do the right thing. That's how we get to where we're at in that space where this is what we do. Then I say, hey, where's the policy on that? You get that, you know, that blank look, but how do you think that happens? How do you think it happens in a department where the policies are treated just like a poster? They're just hanging there on the wall rather than the living document it's supposed to be. So if it's a living, breathing document that we're supposed to be following, where aren't we?
Well, I mean, in some things that I've seen in my experience, there are times, not always, but there are times where even leadership isn't 100% familiar with all of the policies, right? And so you might have someone that's a new leader, they're coming in or being onboarded, and things are so hectic that they don't get a chance to kind of review and or study some of the policies. And so when whatever they were taught, they teach the next person coming in, and now we have a whole process of people not following the actual policy because nobody actually knows what it is.
Now, who's responsible for, I get it, the leader comes in new, on board. Who's responsible for making sure that the policies are updated, making sure they're given to the staff, making sure that we're training to that? Is it the educator or is it the leadership?
I think it's a partnership. And from what I do, even right now in the system that I work in, I do a little bit of both, right? So I'm also a part of the conversation with policies. I am responsible to make sure that if there is a policy, or a lot of times when we see staff has a trend of not following policies, and of course an in-service or something is requested, and I do that and also show them the actual policy. But then when we're creating new policies, I am part of that conversation, and leadership does assist with that. And of course, holding staff accountable to the policy once they are educated on it is also our leadership and educators' responsibilities.
So you must have read my mind because I was about to bring up some stuff. So me being a former director, let me ask this. So we all know that Amy states about fingernails and dress codes and things of that nature, right?
Yeah.
You know what it says you should be at.
Yeah.
But can you hold somebody accountable for what Amy says if you don't have a policy that says the same thing about the fingernails? We know that policy should be based off of the industry standards. So this lady comes to you and says, you go up to the tech and she has her nails and stuff, and you say, well, show me a policy. And then you go looking, but there's no policy. What do?
That's an interesting question. So it does happen in those instances. It's a bit of a challenge, but in my experience, the first thing I'm going to say is, as a sterile processing professional and as the industry standard, we're going to hold the line, right? And sometimes hospitals may not be holding the line in their policy, but this is what we do. This is why we're the experts. This is why we're the certified individuals, right? So that's what my answer is.
Again, to the point of, if it's not in your policy because the policy wasn't updated, or you never had one about dress code or fingernails, or, you know, I've seen them where they say about wearing your own bouffant cap and stuff like that, right? You got to, wear one that's hospital laundered and things of that nature. If it's not in the policy, how can we hold somebody accountable for it? Which then goes back to, what are we onboarding to if the policy is not even there? Like, you're saying, hey, the policy is over there and it's not there, but you're trying to hold somebody to a standard.
That's a conundrum right there. I will give you that one.
I just want to ask I got to ask the tough questions, right? So, or what happens when those policies are in a folder or a binder that nobody ever checks, and then you still don't know where they're at. The staff still don't know where they're at, but we're holding them accountable for something that we haven't even updated ourselves. You said a key word there. You said about industry standards. Yes, we all know what the industry standard says, and yes, our policy is supposed to be based off of that. But if you don't have a policy, now what?
So my answer was going to be, now you're going to let the staff know, listen, this is the industry standard. This is what we're supposed to do because it's about patient safety, number one. And give the reason behind it. Funny enough, I literally just did an in-service on fingernails and personal devices in the department, not because we don't have a policy now, guys, we do have one. And it's posted on the wall. However, there was an uptick. Summertime, everybody wants to be summertime fresh. And we had to talk about it, and everybody kind of looked at us, and I'm like, here's the policy. Now, in the absence of that, I would still say, look, it's because of the patient safety, because of the cross-contamination potential. So therefore, we're going to hold the standard. And then I would get with leadership and say, hey, it's time for us to kind of look at policies and maybe adding some of these things and putting it in black and white. So next time we can actually hold someone accountable.
All right, so you got a bunch of comments here. I don't want to leave anybody out. I saw Simone say, so interesting because it does happen. Kenya says, we're dealing with that at the facility that where she works at right now. They do not have policies in place. I saw Lamont say, this. Welcome, by the way, Lamont. Said, this is where good management comes in to educate, implement, enforce, and monitor routinely. So if these are good, Carl says, create an SOP and get leadership to back you up based on following the AMI standards. Again, this is where that is supposed to come in at, right? We're supposed to be basing our policies off of the industry standard and so on and so forth. And by no means am I picking on women with fingernails, because we have guys that have beards and stuff too, and there's no beard covers being worn. So all of this is the same. So I'm not picking on no one group of people. So let's talk about the guys with beard covers. So,
oh man,
full beard, and they say you're supposed to cover all your hair and blah blah blah, right? Yep. But there's no policy, there's no dress code per se. We know you have to wear the hospital scrubs, but we don't talk about head covering, beard covers, and those type of things. But when there's a hair in a tray, then what? Because we can't hold nobody accountable for it because there's nothing in place. Again, policy is not just a poster. You're supposed to create these SOPs based on real world facts. That's the problem that we have.
Well, I'll do one better. I've been in situations where not only, it's not even just our department, because even in the OR, I've seen where policies on walls, it says restricted, you must wear beard covers, hair coverings, all these things, and they're walking around with nothing, and not a beard cover, not even that bouffant cap on. And then they come to our department, they're like, wait a minute, where's the beard cover? And they're looking at us like we've said something wrong. We're like, no, you're not even supposed to be doing that in the OR, but you can't come down here and do it too. And the policy is on the wall, but nobody is enforcing it.
Yeah, Kenya says yes, especially the beards. I'm not picking on nobody in particular, but Sharon said beards, nails, ear pods falling into open trays. I've seen all of that. I've seen all of those. But again, that is okay. I guess Simone, who doesn't want to look cute, but the thought of a nail or facial hair falling off and in the trays just gives her anxiety. And you're absolutely correct. I know a lot of people who they wear gloves. Another thing we have to talk about. I see people put on gloves to keep from not taking their nails off and all that kind of stuff. There are workarounds, or is it? Can you wear gloves on the clean side? That's a different whole conversation. It's a different whole conversation. But to the point of the OR versus SPD, they would tell you quick. They follow ARN and they have a certain sort of dress code. We have AMI. We have a certain set of dress code. So to us, are you supposed to have jackets on in the department versus, are you supposed to be covered up? Hair, arms, all that stuff. Versus in the OR, yes, they walk around with no jackets, no this, no that. And there is, I've been across the country and I've heard SPD say it's a double standard. But is it, if we're following what we're supposed to be following?
Right.
I think that's the bigger question is it a double standard when it comes to what the policy states, if they have a policy and we don't? I guess that's the bigger part of the question there. So She says, "Woo." Again, back to what Knowledge or Nonsense just said. What if a policy isn't in place? Does that person with the hair in the tray or that nail in the tray, do they get a pass? Because we know what the industry says, but if you don't have anything in writing at your hospital, what does that do for the quality and the patient safety?
So what I would say is no, they don't get a pass, because at the end of the day, even if for some reason there is an express policy written about having your hair out and things like that, or nails or anything, AirPods, it's still, as a professional, you got certified in this industry, not for just one hospital or one department. So if you got certified in the industry, you know what the industry standard is as SPD 101, and you're sitting here trying to argue and say, hey, it's not in this particular hospital's policy, but a patient was at risk because your nail popped off in the tray. That's not really to me, it's not really a good argument to say, oh, well, it's not the hospital policy, because at the end of the day, it's about patient safety, number one. So you still have to be accountable for that. Because if you're going to try to argue the nails on there, if they're on your hands is one thing, but if they're in the tray, that's a whole nother story.
That is very true. I saw a couple of things I want to hit. Let me break it back. So Simone's question was, how does a facility not have any policies in place? What happens when you have that unexpected visit? Simone, what I would tell you is, I've seen it, and because there's a spot for policies, if you know how to get to that spot, sometimes it depends on what they're looking for. They may ask you for the policy for running the sterilizer. They may ask you for the policy on your high-level disinfection. They may ask you the major ones, but they may not break it down to the nails, the hair, and that kind of stuff. So again, you have to have a policy for all of these things so that it does. The standard operating procedure is one thing, but having that policy in place is going to save you. Carol says no gloves to cover nails. It causes more cross-contamination because they don't change them and touch everything. See, Carol, I wasn't going to say it. I just know that people wear the gloves in the department, so I was going to let Leza tell us what her thought on it was, but that's another show. I know it's another show. So, Leza, in that, let me ask you a question. And I know you've been doing this a long time. Can you tell me of a time, and this is the good part of this, so can you tell me of a time where a well-written policy actually changed the way the team worked rather than just being referenced during audits or pop-up visits? Again, a time when a well-written policy changed the way the team worked, and it wasn't treated as just a poster on the wall, and they could actually reference it during the visit. But I want your answer right after this commercial.
In a world overflowing with noise, are you truly being heard? Or better yet, are you truly listening? Kenneth Campbell, industry author and expert in sterilization, is back with his latest book, Learn to Listen, so others are willing to talk. This book isn't just about hearing words, it's about understanding, connecting, and building trust. Whether you're leading a team, navigating relationships, or simply striving for better conversations, these practical strategies will transform the way you communicate. Imagine a world where every conversation leads to deeper connections, resolved conflicts, and greater influence. It's possible when you learn to listen. Are you ready to elevate your communication and create meaningful relationships? Learn to listen, so others are willing to talk. Available now.
Hey, I appreciate all y'all for being here. So I got one ask. If any of y'all know that Kenneth Campbell guy, can you put me in contact with him? Because I need to know. I need a copy of the book signed for myself so I can bring it on the show. Learn to listen so others are willing to talk. So somebody put me in contact with him, please. I thank you. Leza, right before that commercial, we talked about can you talk about a time where there was a well-written policy that actually changed the way the department ran and worked, and it wasn't just a poster. It was actually being used and was even to be referenced during an audit or an unexpected visit. Can you tell me about a time that happened?
Yes, I can. So the first thing that comes to mind is a department policy that I have where I'm at currently. And one of the things that we say as leadership is, and this is like a partnership between us and our team and our staff, is that it's not a mistake unless it goes to the OR, goes upstairs, okay. Right? And so that's our internal policy, and it's posted, but we actually honor that. So because we have a lot of QA processes and we check behind each other, if we can catch a mistake downstairs, then we're going to let the person know, but we're not going to, take it further, right? Unless it does go to the OR or go to one of the departments. And because of that, it has actually changed the way the department works as a cohesive team, because now the staff doesn't feel like if I just made a mistake one day, that I'm going to get written up and out the door. Like we try our best not to do that. We try to work with you, re-educate you, and do things like that. So that is a policy that we have in our department.
So by creating that partnership, you were able to, the anxiety goes away, because if you find it in the department, you're saying it's not an error until it leaves the department.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's actually good. I like that. I like that a lot. My family here they said it's good luck finding him. I need a copy too. He's booked and busy all the time. Somebody has to talk to him and let him know about that, because we need him to come on the show and talk to us. Policy versus I guess what I'm trying to figure out is this: if it's no policy, what are we onboarding or training people to do?
Good question. So it's in that system, you're training them to do what everybody has been doing, which may or may not be the best practice, is what it sounds like.
Carl says SPD policies are lumped under OR and IP. True, which makes them incorrect as they include other groups who don't follow our standards, i.e. the nail polish. Because yes, if they're grouped in with other entities, and I guess for Amy, yes, we have a certain criteria. It has to be a certain length. It can't be no gel nails, all that kind of stuff that people talk about. I guess acrylic and all that. But in the OR, do we know what they're saying? And I think that's where when they come downstairs and people are like, well, they got it on in the OR, do we know what their policy says? Do we know how to, cross-reference each other in that aspect? Because I know they come down and help sometimes. So is it fair for that person in the room, the tech from the OR, to come down and help your staff, and they get nailed up, hair out, all this stuff, but then your people have to be held to a certain standard? Is that fair? So that's where this next question comes in, and because as an educator, I want to know, how do you ensure staff truly understand and apply policies instead of just simply signing off that they saw them during your onboarding process or during that training, like, hey, show me the policy. Oh yeah, they're right there. Okay, that's how you pass. So how do we ensure that they actually truly understand it and apply it in their everyday practice?
That's going to be, the onus is going to be on leadership and on, as an educator, on me as well, right? So if I teach something, and this is something we do in our department, you can't just say it once. You really need to repeat it at least 4 or 5 times. So an in-service, instead of doing a one-time in-service, I'm going to make sure that I do the in-service a few times over the next couple of weeks to reinforce what we've learned a few weeks ago and catch those other people that may have been absent. And then we're going to come back around. And what I do is I'll individually go just random, and I'll bring my little in-service paper and I'll say, hey, remember this? Can you tell me, let's say a policy, if we were talking about nails or beard covers, what did you remember from that policy? What have you seen in the last couple of weeks? An improvement? Have you seen anybody? And just have that conversation so that it's always bringing it to the forefront of their mind. So that it's not like something we talked about a month ago and it goes back out your mind. And now we're popping with our fingernails and our beard covers on because we forgot what we talked about.
Now I got one for you. And this is a good one because I just saw it happen at a facility the other day. And it blew my mind that people still do it. I know that everybody has to run a boy dick, right? And I know that the right way to do it, use an empty rack. You push the rack in, you do it, pull the rack out. You mimic a regular load the way you're supposed to. But I've seen people put just a pan in there, like a flash pan with the boy dick in it. I heard, I haven't seen it, but I heard people just sticking boy dicks in the sterilizer just to get it done instead of having to go through the full process. Now, my question is, what if there's no policy that says you have to do it the right way?
There's an IFU that says you have to do it a certain way.
There's getting the test ran. Now, we all know that IFUs are supposed to be, we follow. Great, we get it. We know how to run the test. But what happens when there's no procedure on how to do it? Can we hold somebody accountable for that? Say anything about the nails and stuff. There are certain things that we do in our departments that should have a concrete, well-written policy. But what if there isn't? We're back to that again. How do you, we're saying we're sure, and you just said we train and we do this and we do that, but how do we know that you're training to the policy?
So if you're training, so as an educator, if I'm going to train something, especially to that level, we're talking about running the sterilizer and how to test the sterilizer, right? And first of all, I feel like if you're doing that, you should know how to do that as a professional, whether there's a policy or not. And now what you want to do when nobody's looking is another story, but to say you don't know it is kind of a little bit sketchy to me, because we've all kind of been trained, I would assume, at some point on how to do it. Now, let's just say it's a newbie. They got trained by somebody else who does it however they want to do it, and they had no idea. If there's not a policy on that for some reason in a hospital, then I feel like an educator or leadership needs to take the responsibility again to show the person the proper way according to the professional standard. I'm gonna always fall back on professional standard because our industry is our industry. And to me, whether a hospital is up to speed with that, is still our responsibility to hold the line and to show that professionalism so we can bring the hospital along with us.
I think you cheated. I think you got my notes or something, because my next question or my next statement was, what role do the leadership play in bringing a policy to life in the day-to-day operations? I know everybody said it's a role of leadership to ensure that that policy is there, that policy is written, and so on and so forth. But where does leadership fall in the actual day-to-day if they're not on the floor like that?
That's where your first line leadership comes into play. That's where those lead techs, those supervisors, that's part of their responsibilities as far as I'm concerned, and the educator, because they're there. You can see now a director, a manager, they're around, but they're not going to catch every little thing, and they're definitely not going to watch somebody put a Bowie Dick in all the time, right? So that's why we have other people in place so that they can find these deficiencies and say, hey, we need some education around this. We need a policy, and then go, hey, manager, director, we don't have a policy because I looked it up and it's not there. And then facilitate that process to get it implemented.
So how often should policies be checked?
I know, in some cases it's like every year. I say like every 6 months, depending on the type of policy we're talking about, because things change in the industry pretty rapidly, especially these days.
Okay. So fair. Now, as it pertains to the training, and when you have preceptors, right? And I know everybody should have the same level of training when it comes to precepting. Everybody should be well versed in what we're showing. So, Lamont said that's why God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. You should listen more than you speak. I need a copy of Learn to Listen. I know, Lamont, that's why you're my friend. Simone says it's crucial that management have the back of the educator. It's not the job of the educator solely. Yes, there may be items that we feel are tedious, but this is an industry where we are in with the focus on patient safety. Again, we say all of these great things, and we can go into work tomorrow. Look at your policies, and you'll be surprised how many of them are not up to date, how many of them no longer exist, because it's not a routine thing that people do until it's time for that said unexpected visit, that said audit. That's when you find these things. But how often does, they say Joint Commission come around? How often are you actually truly looking at your policies? And that's why I struggle with the them versus us scenario, because we'll say, oh, they don't have to wear a jacket, so on and so forth. And then we have to wear a jacket down here. But again, to your point, there are industry standards. But again, a person that has any sense will say, well, what does our policy say? I get what you're saying. You got in this industry for the job that you're in, and you're supposed to learn these things. I said in a previous show, somebody told me, Amy, they work at their hospital, so Amy has no say-so in their department, right? So if Amy doesn't have say-so, it's governed by the policy. So now, show me your policy on ABC, and if you don't have it, then what do? That's the basis of this whole thing. It's not just a policy. It's not just a poster that's hanging there on the wall. Carol had a good comment there. It went away. I'll get to it when it comes back up. But those posters, even the posters on the wall, things change so much. How often are you changing those? Yeah. Because a lot of outdated posters are still there. Like, we write policies about first in, first out. Is it happening? Are we rotating trays? Are we doing all of these things that we say should be in a policy? We say are industry standards. We say are normal day-to-day, but we're not doing. Do you have a policy to check the tape on the instruments? I can go ask somebody. They'll be like, what tape? They'll be like, what are you talking about right now? But these are the type of things that we have to be talking about when we're talking about holding people accountable for stuff and creating SOPs and policies. How do you create an SOP that works for your department? Let's talk about that real quick. How do you create an SOP? How do you create an SOP that actually works in real time?
How do you create one that works in real time?
Yes. Not just what the industry says, but we're talking about what actually happens in the department. Because that's where you get dinged at, right? We don't get dinged by what Amy says. We get dinged by what your policy states.
Yeah, that's true. So it would be taking account of what's going on in your department. So like some of the things that we do is we notice what's happening. So we're taking, even if you're doing your rounding or you're taking inventory of what you see, or your first line supervisors and lead techs, they're there so they can kind of say, oh, well, I did see the person put the Bodie Dick in on the mesh pan without putting it on the rack and all that. So if you're aware and you're paying attention of what's going on, now you can say, okay, what is the most pressing things right now that our staff are in need of some more education and an actual policy around, so we don't have to have these challenges down the line. And then you sit down to me and you would sit down and create the policy and then educate the staff on the policy. So everybody is aware now, do not use that basket for your Bowie Dick. Use the proper way or whatever the policy needs to be.
Now, in that same vein of training and thought process, when we are bringing somebody on board, or we are doing, I guess when we have students and we're doing all these things where we're getting people their hours, or we're, a new person coming in, you're training them to the way you do it at your facility. Are we truly saying, hey, read the policies first and then go into the department? Or do you stick them with a preceptor and say, hey, this person is in decon for 3 weeks, this person's on prep and pack for 3 weeks, this person on the sterilizer for 3 weeks, and they never see the actual policy? Now are we reverting back to the tribal knowledge because you're now just telling them you train them? So which one is correct? This is just opinionated. These are our views, not the views of anybody's entity that we work for or may be sponsored by. I'm just saying, is there a correct way to get that knowledge to the staff?
I think it's a combination of both. New people coming in and being onboarded, obviously they're going to be paired up with someone who's been in the department and knows the way of the department and the culture, but there has to be an introduction to the policies and whatever the actual procedures are according to what the hospital is saying. If I'm onboarding anybody new in my facility, I literally created a manual that I personally hand to each new person, whether they're a new hire or a student during their hours. And in the manual, it tells the procedures and the policies, but the general ones for each area of the department. Then I'm going to pair them with someone and say, hey, they're going to show you the ropes in this area or that area. But I also encourage them, read the book. I literally gave you the book on this department. And so if you come and say, hey, somebody told me to do this crazy thing over here that was totally against what the policy says, you can't argue that because I gave you the manual.
So I guess that's the biggest piece of if we are not saying just solely the educator, because somebody said it's not just the educator. You got to have management that has the educators back, right?
Yep.
So if we know that we're giving out policies, we're passing out the handouts, we're bringing attention to the poster, and we're bringing attention to your SOPs, and everything is flowing, why do we have errors and mistakes?
Well, that's a great question.
I know people say shortcuts. I get it. It's a part of this business we can't get away from, no matter how we try. But if we are training to a policy, training to a standard, Why do these things still exist, and how do they keep happening?
Because again, people take shortcuts. There's pressures. Like, we have to also look at the other side. I'm a great tech, and I might know policies and procedures.
Wait a minute. I want to hear this. She said we got to look at the other side, family. I want to know what this other side is.
I mean, if I'm a tech, and I've been a tech. I'm a tech, and I get pressure from the OR. I'm getting all these things, and I'm trying to do the best I can. But they need that one tray, they need these things now. Like, okay, so I might cut a corner, and then me cutting the corner, I'm like, well, that took me a little less time. Maybe I can continue to do that. And it becomes a habit or becomes a practice. Now I'm showing somebody else, well, this is what I do. And these are the corners that I've cut, and it keeps on going. So I don't think that it's always just, we don't know. I don't think it's always intentional, but if we're under pressure, and we are, like, they give us a lot of pressure sometimes on time frames, and people, they do things, and then it just becomes part of their everyday.
Now I would take the high road here as being a senior management person. I would say that is on us to actually, as they say, hold the line. Just because the OR needs it, we can't cut corners. We can't do, as Sharon say, it's just turning to miles and miles and then miles and miles, because yes, every time you cut a corner, you're saving some time, you're getting it, you're making it happen. But what again does the policy say? What does that SOP say? And I tell people all the time, they know what I do, and there's no secret. But I tell people, decon can't change. The process in decon is the process in decon. No matter when you need that trade for, you still have to follow the process. You still have to follow the procedure, the standard, the policy, whatever you want to call it. Those steps can't be altered just because somebody needs a trade quicker. Because then what happens? They may get that fingernail, they may get that hair in the tray, they may get bioburden, they may get whatever. Are we going to say, well, the policy said I could take a shortcut? Is that ever going to be a thing that somebody says? The policy said I didn't have to do that step. Like, you know what I'm saying? So why do that? And again, that's back to what I was saying. Why do they exist? And I just think it looks like that. Like, when we're thinking about these things. And a great conversation so far, Leza. I appreciate you. But this was all made possible by my good friends over at IMP. If you're not an MVP partner, most valuable partner, make sure you reach out to them, and definitely sign up for that program where you'll get free loaners, you'll get repair discounts, you're going to have great customer service, and it's just the program itself will save you a ton. Matter of fact, you know what? Leza, we're going to talk some more right after this commercial.
Trusted equipment, backed by service. Safer patient outcomes begin with the right equipment and the right partner behind it. That's why we created the MVP program, our commitment to being your most valuable partner in every procedure. When you start using IMP patient protective pads or SteriBump, our sterile surgical bump, you unlock more than just great products. You gain discounted repairs to keep costs down, free loaner equipment to keep you up and running, product discounts to maximize your investment, a 1-year new product warranty, and the exceptional service and support you've come to rely on, delivered by a team that's with you every step of the way. It's more than just a service plan. It's our commitment to stand behind you with best-in-class support. Because reliable equipment means safer outcomes for your patients. That's the MVP standard. It's service when you need it, support that's seamless, and protection that's built in so you can focus on what matters most, patient safety. Talk to your IMP representative or visit impmedical.com/MVP to become an MVP today. Because when you invest in IMP, we invest in you.
I know y'all saw that commercial. When you invest in IMP, they invest in you. It's definitely a program worth investing in. Make sure you reach out to your rep and see what you can do, see what they can do for you. Leza, it's been a great conversation. We've been talking about policy versus not following it or not having it. Like, it's actually very, very simple. Hey, I want to make sure y'all get your phones ready. We got a little bit of time left, but get your phones ready so you can make sure that you can grab the code for the night. Make sure you get your CEU at the end. And definitely, it's been a whirlwind with the CEUs. I know a lot of people, I've seen you go on, take your test, pass your test, get your certificates, and I appreciate it. So keep telling people about the show. Have them come watch the show, get those CEUs. I know y'all need the CEUs. Make sure we get them. Hey, Miss Madam Presidente is here. Arlene, welcome, welcome, welcome. So we talked about people not following the policies. We talked about not having policies. We talked about everybody that's involved in making it happen, right? So let me ask you this question. What is one of the biggest barriers, in your opinion, what is one of the biggest barriers to turning policies into practice? And how can an organization overcome that challenge?
One of the biggest barriers that I find is more so as we've been talking about, the mindset of this is how we've always done it. Change. We all know that sometimes change is difficult. And for some people, and when you're coming in with a policy and I'm not used to doing that, or I'm so comfortable and have become complacent with the way I've done things that I don't want to, I really just don't want to change. And a lot of times that causes some challenges when we're trying to implement new policies, because it's just really like, okay, this is the policy, we're all going to do it. And they're like, no, we're not doing that. We've been doing it this way forever, and that's just not going to work for me. And a lot of times we have to do a lot of re-education and coaching in order to get some people and individuals to move with the times and kind of go along with the policy changes. So sometimes it is a bit of a challenge.
I can see that. I can see that because I know we saw it with ST91 when those new things that were implemented for endo and the changes that happened, and people had a whole uproar about the 10 minutes of air and I can't put it in the cabinet. I can't do all these things. So we know that it happens. Just like with the new transportation that came out, the new water quality that came out. People are afraid of change. I get it. But if that is our standard, what is the challenge? If we're training people to a standard, what is the challenge? Yes, that phrase is in every department that I've ever been in, as a vendor, as a regular tech, as a director. I've always heard people say, we always do it that way.
Yes.
Yeah, that doesn't make it right. That doesn't make it right. So if we're creating, that's what I'm saying. If we're creating these SOPs and we're doing it true to form of what happens in the department, how is there a gray area?
Yeah, I don't know how there's a gray area. Honestly,
I said we talk about accountability, right?
Yeah, that's what it's about.
So is it worth the accountability when you're talking about losing people because people just don't want to do the right thing? Because that's the other part of that. You start writing retention. You start.
Yeah, there's a retention.
Can you tell us about the retention problem, Leza?
Oh, okay, I wasn't sure if I was frozen. Yeah, so that's the other side of it. You have the HR and other departments saying retention. So then if you have staff that are maybe a little bit more resistant to policy changes, and it's, as Kenneth was saying, well, there really isn't a gray area, it's black and white. Then it becomes a bit of a dance where, okay, we have to implement new policies, but we also don't want to have a situation where if we have someone that's resistant, that they're going to, we might possibly lose them. So therefore, we have to kind of figure out a balance between us being able to retain the staff and keeping them up to date on the policy and following those procedures. So I think that sometimes can be a challenge for leadership. But that's why we're here. And that's what educators, that's why we're also here to help to keep the staff on board as well with the new policies.
When there is an unexpected visitor, how soon are the policies updated? Because I've actually seen where policies haven't been updated. I'm saying like years and years. Like it's almost scary because some of the stuff is antiquated, like so antiquated.
Right. So, yeah, and that's the thing. It shouldn't take unexpected visitors to show up to make policies all of a sudden get updated or things like that. These are things that should be done on a regular basis, right? There should be a time frame around it, and there should be a policy written on how often policies are going to be updated. So
I think they didn't want to hear what I had to say. I think they tried to kick me out. They didn't want to hear what I had to say. That's why
I know.
Hey, Kenneth, wait, she's answering.
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed it.
Welcome to the live show.
Right. No, I was just saying that there should be a policy written on how often policies were updated, and that there shouldn't take unexpected visitors to show up or potentially be on their way for things to change, and all of a sudden the hallway gets clear, and all of a sudden everything is clean, and all of a sudden the policies that should have already been implemented before are being done, and people know how to follow policies. So that's all we were talking about. We missed you for 2 seconds.
Yeah, they want to kick me out when you start talking real stuff. That ain't right. Arlene says COVID taught us a lot about implementation, right? It's like there was a policy for everything that didn't make sense during COVID. Like we were reprocessing masks, and I know that's not a policy. So I'm just saying, when we're talking about creating these SOPs, and that's what I was trying to say before they kicked me out. When you're talking about creating the SOPs, and we're talking about putting these SOPs in place, we have to make sure that our policies reflect what we're trying to teach. Our policies reflect where we're referencing this information from. Because again, back to your so you got to have a policy on policies. I know that's right. You got to have a policy to police the policy. But when you're talking about all of these entities that play a part in it, AORN, AST, HSBA, AME, all these people are going to say different things, right? How do we bring all that together to make sure that we're doing the right thing? And to your point, how often are they checked? Who's checking them? That's important. Who's signing off on them? Is there a policy committee? Are we sitting together and say, hey, is that what has changed here? Not relying on one person's tribal knowledge to say that's what should go into a policy, and actually collaborating with the team to say, is this still true to our standards, our practices, and what we're doing in the department, and making sure that those things actually are being implemented. As we said, implementation of everything, right? Leza, as I always do about this time, if you were, since we're talking policies, let's talk about that. If you walked into a facility right now and there was no policies or the policies were outdated, how would you tackle that situation as a new manager?
If there's no policies?
We're going to say there's none, there's slim to none, there's none, there's outdated policies. Because if it's outdated, essentially you have no policy. So how would you handle that situation?
Okay, so if that happened, I would assess the situation first, right? See what the top, let's say top 10, top 20 things that were like staring me in the face, and we have to get some policies around that. And then I would start creating the policies, talking to the existing leadership team that's there, get their feedback on what's going on in the culture, get the feel from the staff, have some conversations with the staff to see like, why are we doing this, or whatever their thought process is behind it. Then I would, like, as you said, have the committee. We would put together a committee, put some policies together, do some education, do some re-education, and reiterate the training, as I mentioned earlier, and do some coaching around it. That way, hopefully over time, we'll see a trend where people are starting to adopt the process and the policies, and it goes into a positive trend.
Okay, and in that same vein of existence, when you're talking about, I saw Arlene say something that threw me off real quick. She said, agreed, policies changes need to be made annually, or at least looked at. So when it comes to onboarding, everybody may not pass out a book like you do. How can we ensure that onboarding actually truly touches on the policies? I know that we make checklists for everything, and it just says, instead of just checking a box, how can we make sure that those policies are at the forefront of, hey, this is what you're going to be doing. These are the things you should be familiar with. Can we do something different to make sure that that becomes a priority?
Yeah, something you can do in addition to is do some assessments around it. You can challenge people and give not a paper, maybe do give them a paper and pen and say, hey, take test on it, but you have to test them, you have to challenge them. Not everybody is going to even read a book if you handed it to them, right? Not a manual. They're like, I don't want to see that. I don't have time for that, So it doesn't even matter. You can hand them a bunch of policies. It doesn't mean they're going to read it and or follow them. So it then becomes a process of being able to assess whether or not you read the policy. I'm assessing what I see you doing in terms of what you're doing as your process on a daily basis. And I want to make sure that you can give me some feedback on what the policies are. I'm not just going to assume that you checked off the checklist and we're done. I need to see it in real time. And that's something that we've done. We did have a checklist, say, around sterilization and how to do it properly. But then when you go behind the person, they signed off on it, but still didn't know how to do all the processes. So we had to go back through and actually say, okay, you are not familiar with why there's these pulses in our sterilizers. You couldn't answer the question. What are the pulses for? What's positive, negative pulses for? Things like that. So we need to go back and actually challenge them and do some assessments and get feedback in real time.
So are you telling me that a competency can be used to make sure that people are doing stuff correctly? Oh my, I would have never thought of that. I would have said something different. But Carol says, moving forward. Arlene says, see, y'all trying to play with me now. Carol says, no one else would run screaming from the building. True. And Arlene says, I start with equipment, then process policies, then RMD process policies. I maybe number the policies like all 500 SOPs are for SPD equipment. And that is very true. But to that same point that y'all making, it's hard enough to get people to do their health stream. How are we going to make sure they read policies? Let's talk about this in real time. It's hard enough to keep up with everybody doing health stream, and now that you want us to add policies in there too. You know how staff get. It's one or the other. Which one you want? Which one are you going to do? I'm going to do the health stream because you say I can't come to work if I'm not current on health streams. I'm going to do those. Everybody, make sure you get this code. Make sure you get your code for the CEU. In the comments is the link. If you happen to be on your phone, in the comments, the link is there. Make sure you get that CE. Make sure. Definitely tell your staff, tell your friends. The shows have been informative. They've been very engaging, and the CEUs are there. So on a rewatch, they can go back, get the code, get the CEU for the old episodes as well as this episode that you have today. Today, y'all, we had Leza Money. Y'all heard me correct. Her name is Money, Leza Money. She actually has a school of her own. I'm gonna have her tell y'all about that one more time. Could you tell them about what you have going on one more time?
Yes, I do have a program. I do teach sterile processing. Name of my program is Sterile Processing Universal, and we do a hybrid of online and in-person training. We do provide the training for people coming into the industry. Externships are available, things like that as well. And I also work in the hospital as an educator, doing what I need to do to help leadership kind of get everybody on board with these policies.
You see, that's what I'm talking about. So we have people that are in real time actually trying to advance the business. So when I'm bringing people on here, I'm bringing people that I want to have, that you can see that are doing this in real time and are working toward the greater good of the industry. So having somebody that actually enforces policies, help write SOPs, and training on their own time, actually bringing new people in the industry with a good sense of what we do. That's where we're going to get the buy-in from everybody. If we start at ground level and getting everybody in the business, that's where I want to make sure that happens. The link should be in the comments, Arlene. Can we put the link back up on the screen? The other link as well. I'll put it back in the comments so it comes to the top of the comments for everybody. Family, this has been Time to Talk, where we get to talk about policy is not just a poster. Lisa was that kind of thing. See, y'all moving all over the place now. Lisa was a great guest. Having a fellow educator talk this topic was 100% correct choice. Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Carol.
Thank you, Carol.
There goes the link, Arlene. Make sure we click on the link. Make sure we get the link. So y'all get the CEU. Again, family, policy is not just a poster. Make sure that what you're doing in your departments, or make sure that when you see somebody doing something that's improper, we are not turning a blind eye to that stuff, because patient safety should be our main focus. And if we're not doing things correctly, how can we set in a good sense of moral character say that we are giving our patients 110%. So make sure that those policies are updated. Leaders, make sure those policies are updated. Educators, make sure you're training to the policy. Make sure that it is not just a poster on the wall that's only there for Joint Commission to come in. Make sure that it's not outdated. Make sure, I'm not saying go create a book like Leza did, but make sure that we're pointing people in the right direction and that everybody can speak to where those policies are at. Family, I appreciate you all. I thank y'all for being here. Leza, again, thank you for blessing us with the knowledge tonight and dropping those jewels on everybody. Family, as always, I'll see y'all next week, same time, same place. It's been time to talk. Let's talk about it.